Hello, lovelies. It's another Friday, so let's do another lazy response to the comments post. So you'll notice that there are daily updates on the Roll for Insight. Mixed bag. It's a project I like because it gets to involve other people, and my channel's not huge, but it's bigger than a lot of other people's channels in this space, so it's nice to give people some exposure and get some other perspectives and so on. Of course, some people are whining and complaining that I've platformed certain people and haven't platformed other people. It's completely open. Anyone, pretty much, who wants to be platformed can come on. I'll send them some questions. They can record their answers, and then they'll go out. There's pretty much no gatekeeping unless you've personally been a dick to me on a quite major level, and even then I'll consider it. So if you don't like the people who are being platformed on the channel, come forward and offer your own perspective. The only provisor is that you must be a role-playing game influencer or designer, whatever the fuck influencer means. What else has been going on? I was sick this week, which knocked out a couple of days and made Tabletopless extra exhausting, which kind of knocked me out yesterday and today. So I am behind on stuff. But this afternoon I got back into laying out the DCC conversion book for Whitechester, so that shouldn't be too much longer, though I want to go the approved route with DCC, which means I'm going to be sending them the finished manuscript when it's done and getting approval for the final go-ahead, so it might be a bit longer than otherwise. I'm also starting work on something for the Red Room, a sort of J.G. Ballard inspired thing for New Flesh, but that's all I can really say at this point. It's just a loose collection of ideas, really. That's about all. I am sponsoring Nerdcognito for the next few weeks, so go and listen to their podcast and listen to them big me up. It's quite nice to have that happen for a change. Otherwise, other upcoming stuff. I'm working on a non-tabletopless adult project. It's a sort of choose your own adventure with an erotic twist, I suppose. Yeah, nervous about how that will go, but we'll see. It's something that's been in my mind for a while, and I need to work out a work process for doing choose your own adventure books, because it's something I have wanted to do for a while. It's like writing for comics, which I've done a couple of times now. Yeah, it's something I wanted to do. I never anticipated a huge amount of success, but it's something I've always wanted to do, so I'm going to do it. Yeah, I was trying to be less busy this year, but it hasn't really worked out that way. We'll see. I need time for my hobby to be my hobby a bit somewhere, so we'll see where that comes in. Right, on to the comments from the last week, and I think you can guess what a lot of them are going to be about, because they're always about that. Mercutio UK 2006 says, precisely whom decided to blacklist you, and why are those cunts relevant? It's almost as if they are incredibly threatened and impotent woke skulls. This is from, I believe, some sort of fluffy OSR group. You know, people hate the OSR and assume that it's full of fascists or whatever else, so there seem to be these constant attempts to reinvent it in a much more progressive, I suppose, sort of light, and they always seem to fail at some point. Why is it relevant? I mean, I don't particularly care who these people are. They're already too far gone. But this kind of stuff gets communicated to new people and people who are interested in the area and the hobby as a whole and so on. And so you get this bad reputation amongst people who have been inculcated to believe horrible things about you and then you never really get a chance to speak up to it, to speak truth to power, to undermine the gossip that is going around about you. And so some people will subscribe to block lists or other things, so they never get to see the stuff that you do. They only ever get to see the rumours, which typically become wilder and more unhinged as time goes on. So it does matter. It affects sales, it affects your mental health, and it stops people finding and enjoying and appreciating your work. Or God forbid they actually buy something and like it and speak up about how much they like it somewhere where these people are. That can really, really shit people up. Ensign Redcoat says, I really hate people sometimes. So sorry you're having to go through this again, James. Yeah, me too, but it's been over a decade of it now, so I guess I'm used to it. It's every new time it comes up, it's all the hurt feelings and frustration from before, and then each time there's another little bit on top, so it constantly builds even as you get inured to it, and somewhat protected from it. Doc Necrotic says, again about the blacklist, even Tenkar, what a bunch of poser fascists. Also, this is yet another dark side of social media, all of the ego, none of the confrontation. Well, they think they're being brave, and you can do a Garak on people online. You can get off several witty retorts which will wound people for a lifetime. Better than getting beaten up, I suppose. As Tenkar, I think I've described him as pathologically neutral in the past. I don't see what's so offensive about him. He's even gone after the correct people a few times, so I don't know. Weird. Expression Amidst Cacophony wrote a novel, which I'm not going to subject the rest of you to, but the gist of it is that other people do not share your prioritization of values. They're not truth seekers. They've got no interest in seeking out truth, and they don't have the mental training, inclination, capacity to seek truth. So they use a cheat code, and they shortcut by following the herd. Basically, people aren't very good at determining what's true. So I thought that was a nice and insightful comment, but I don't want to subject everyone to a multi-paragraph comment. Right, so my what must be nearly 5-year-old video on the Kalergi plan continues to bait racists over and over again. They live, we sleep, ooh, dramatic. Says, the best way to deceive is not to lie but to tell a little truth, just not the whole truth. To which I replied, yes, that's how conspiracy theorists typically work. And he says, that's how you're working right now. And so I said, so prove me wrong. Show me the conspiracy in the book. 5 years of almost daily baited racists coming onto either that Kalergi plan video or the follow-up that I did, and not a single one has been able to prove that this conspiracy that supposedly exists within his book, Practical Idealism, actually exists, and it's not just a somewhat utopian series of predictions about how society and so on would evolve in the future. And I think he was fairly good at prognosticating on the way things were going to happen, and considering his situation, it's not at all unusual that he came up with the ideas that he did. So if you want to refute me, if you want to prove that there is some sinister plan to displace white people and so on, well, specifically this plan, right, which is what the video is about, all you have to do is show me the plan in the book. There are even translations now, but try to avoid the ones by people who share your ideological slant, alright? That's all you have to do. So, open challenge. Makiura says, hashtag save Grimasaur. I'm fine, I'm just worn out with it all. there's another screed by They Live, We Sleep. Basically, his argument amounts to, but look, which is about as convincing as when a religious person tries to argue that the proof of God is, look, a tree, or whatever. It's not convincing. Why you would ever think that would be convincing, right? Even if, in regard to this conspiracy theory, we were to accept your assertions about the world, right, that we're being overrun by darkies or whatever other paranoid nonsense you've got percolating around in what passes for a brain in your number, even if all of that were true, that would not prove that there was a sinister conspiratorial plan behind it, or that that plan was spelled out in practical idealism. So I can grant, though I won't, everything that you say about the world, and that still does absolutely nothing to prove that there's some weird conspiracy going on, hatched by a half German, half Japanese person before World War II. Why is this so difficult to understand? Well, you're racists, so, you know. Brains isn't exactly on the menu. Back to the stuff about the blacklist. Ovaltine Patrol, cool name, says, if these ridiculous little hall monitors actually got their way, they'd end up lined against a wall with the other useful idiots. Don't let them wear you down, it'd just be an achievement for ignorance. It's not them that get me down, it's that there's so many people out there who you'll never get a chance to talk to, who will never have the opportunity to get to know you as you really are because of these stupid reputations and things that go around. And I also feel like it must be my fault that these people don't understand what I've been communicating. Or with people I've fallen out with, I feel hurt that all of that friendship and cooperation and them getting to know me previously wasn't enough for them to trust me about, you know, at least my perspective on whatever it was we fell out about. It feels so utterly petty, and it also feels like it's my fault for not being able to communicate properly, adequately. And, you know, as a writer, that cuts deep. You like to think that you're good at communication, and as someone who's doing videos for years as well. But, so it's not so much the people that hate me as it is my failure to communicate and the many little betrayals I've had over the years. Eldred Wolfsbane, who was on the list, says, I'm so honoured to be on this list with you, sir. This video was great. I can't fathom what I have ever done to be on this list, but whatever I did, I hope to chuck on a dick, as we say in ancient Elvish. Yeah, I don't know what many people on this list have done exactly. Raji is a lovely guy. He just has very strong opinions about free expression. So do I, right? And his taste is to the macabre and the dark and the heavy metal aesthetic, which is cool elsewhere, but for some reason with him it isn't. Or is it purely association with Zach, who is a dick but hasn't actually been convicted of anything? I mean, you can not like someone because they're a dick, fine, but that doesn't mean you have to try and tear their entire life down around their ears, does it? I don't know. And frankly, you don't have to have done anything. So, Pulp Herb says, thanks for the list on the side. It gave me people to check out. If they're being silenced, they might be writing crap, but usually they're at least interesting. Also, it's BS, but we're still here. I'll be back on SS when finances settle. Yeah. That's the thing, though, right? So whenever something like this happens, in the short term, you get a big boost. Like Raji got when he was attacked. Loads of people bought his stuff and basically financed him for a year, which is nice, you know? And I'll get some followers out of it. I'll probably get a few sales out of it, people feeling sorry for me. But that's not how I want to sell books. I know I'm being picky, Right, capitalism. I should just be happy to get the bucks. But I want people to buy my stuff because they find it interesting, because of the work that I've put into it, because of the thought that I've put into it. Not to stick it to the man, or because they feel sorry for me, you know? Let's see, what else have we got? Frater Merovius says, the religious zealots save their greatest rage and deepest hatred for the heretics, not the atheists. Being the wrong brand of left makes you far more dangerous and therefore despised, rather more despised than being an actual National Socialist racist born-again clan member. Yeah, to an extent that's true, I think. I'm a little bit of a Jiminy Cricket constantly whittering on about class consciousness around people who've moved on to new left identity politics and then have dialed that up to 11, I suppose. Yeah, I guess it's the wrong kind of left. It's the authoritarian libertarian divide again, I think. Like, I'm not American, but American politics, I follow it like other people follow sport, right? And there was that Supreme Court case recently about affirmative action, right? Well, that's just prejudice, isn't it? It's just institutionalized prejudice. It's just that it's positive toward some people, but it is not the 1950s. It's not even the 1970s anymore. And so, I mean, nobody alive today has been a slave in the sense that it existed back then. So this kind of thing just seems hypocritical. And if you're trying to formulate a law, especially post-civil rights, you can't really have one law for one set of people based on their racial makeup and one law for another set of people based on their racial makeup, because that's bad. We've all agreed that that's bad. That's what the whole civil rights thing was about. So while there may have been some sense in a sort of compensatory positive discrimination in the past, I don't think that really holds true anymore. Certainly it's not compatible with left-wing values to hold people to different standards. Universalism is a major left-wing concept and conceit. God, the replies I got to that comment, and people were bringing up legacies and things. Well, that's a class issue, isn't it? It's not a race issue, really, not anymore. That's where I tend to part company with what passes for the modern left. Is they're all about carving out special exceptions and special privileges for people just on different lines than those used to exist, and that to me violates fundamentals of left-wing philosophy, which makes it hypocritical and unsustainable. Not that the right's any better, and have been getting worse again lately, as they seem to have regathered their social power. But yeah, being hit by your own side is rough. Liberal Hyena says, the truly frightening and strangely unremarked thing about this video, which brings home to me how deeply affected you must be by the assault on your character of which you speak so passionately, is the absence of headgear, the equivalent of a deeply traumatized woman shaving her head. I just didn't feel like wearing the hat. That's all. There's no deeper meaning to it. Okay, this was on a previous comments video, so meta. Dead Goat says, the reason immigration is difficult and expensive is literally due to illegal immigration and people who support illegal immigration. I couldn't disagree more. We used to have a very efficient immigration system, which would quite rapidly check into people's backgrounds, approve them to stay, grant them asylum, whatever the case might be, or not, pretty damn quickly. And that wasn't hugely expensive, and people exiting the system into the country were then able to work and contribute tax. And immigrants, even those from outside the EU, contribute more to the economy than they take out of it. It's about 1.1 times, whereas with EU immigrants it was something like 1.3 to 1.6 times, but you know, we cut them off because we're stupid. There are also no legal paths to immigration at the moment for people who are asylum seeking. So the only way to get here is illegally. But that doesn't make you illegal. It just shows the desperation. If you want to cut costs, if you want this to more than pay for itself, you need to process people more quickly and not do stupid things like buying floating barges or semi-retired cruise ships to use to house people. The return of prison hulks is not something to be proud of. Process them quickly and then either return them to their point of origin if they don't have a valid asylum claim, or grant them asylum and let them get to work. Right? Treat people humanely. It's not only the right thing to do, it's the most fiscally sound thing to do. Back to the blacklist. DB says, an obscure user on an obscure Discord passed on a list that someone gave them, no context, no explanation. This is just social media bullshit, and you can relax and keep on doing you, even if you are sometimes an annoying little fuck. I mean, what the heck is Courtney Campbell doing on that list? Zach Smith, an RPG pundit, I get, hating them as a fucking hobby within the hobby. But otherwise, this is a meaningless column of names, occasionally interrupted with meaningless headings. Forget about it. So this is the tip of the iceberg that you see. There's also the private abuse that I get, and there's God knows what going on and being passed about that we don't see, which is probably about 10 times as much as what we do see. It is a problem, and I'm kind of sick of pretending it's not, and of pretending I can always just brush it off. I can a lot of the time. But the bit that really concerned me about that was the platformers part. Because in order to counter the rest of it, in order to present your side of the story, to have a right to face your accusers and so on, you have to be platformed. You have to reach people. And often you can't. Bleach420 says, Jim, you moron shill. Let's see how it feels when your daughter gets raped by an African savage. I think you can guess which video that was in reply to. Doesn't refute anything and really says more about them than it does me. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be shilling for here. Will in New Haven, back to the blacklist, says, this is the problem with the left libertarians. Your perceived allies are authoritarian. We right libertarians, not the Libertarian Party, have the same problem. I wish I saw a solution. Marhawkman 303 says, there is a book that talks about one, but most don't want to try to find the solution. The reality is that even if you do have the solution, human nature is to oppose it. Why? Because man is a fallen creature, thus living on base instincts leads to ruin. So I think he's alluding to religion, perhaps, which, no, that's a thoroughly stupid thing to point out, given all the tremendous amount of trouble religion has caused. Darth Azabrush says, it's a pity I've been out of action from ill health for so long. It seems the wankers have forgotten me. Well, it's nice to hear from you. I hope you're not too unwell, and things get better, and you get back to making stuff. Honestly, I do find some of your stuff a bit cringe, but, you do you, mate. We've had a lot of stuff on the blacklists. I thought this was funny. K Mike says, you must be sick of dealing with the plumbers at this point, always bringing up old shit. Very clever. Smitumi says, you've been blacklisted more often than the Hollywood 10. Probably. On to Roll for Insight. Rob Necronomicon, who's done some stock art, which you can get through Postmortem on Drive-Thru RPG. Comments on one of the OGGM's videos. I've always liked the OG's channel as well. Good to see that he's putting stuff out there again. Yeah, I would encourage anybody to stick their neck out, and if they've got ideas, write them down, put them out, let other people discover them, buy them, listen to them, whatever it might be. I might jokingly say I don't want the competition, but nah, enjoy yourself. Joe Koo, talking on one of Bruno's Roll for Insight videos, says World of Darkness was okay. 20th anniversary editions are awesome editions. Newer editions sucks. It's doing the hobby a huge disservice. Wish folks would step away from gaming books and go wreck something else. I don't think we'd wish that on anybody else, Joe. Not really. Some folks need to get over their hang-ups before picking up and creating games. Now that I think we can agree with. Midnight Green, on a review for Mutant Crawl Classics, says, I do like MCC, even though this type of post-apocalyptic game isn't as much my bag. Have you ever looked at Mutant Epoch? It's absolutely wild. I don't think I have seen Mutant Epoch. I've certainly heard it mentioned. But, yeah. Another one of Bruno's videos, The Angry Piper, says, I love the consequences mechanic from Actual Fucking Monsters, and used a slightly different version of it for my own games. It's awesome. It's a great way of reminding yourself of the shit that the players have gotten up to, and making sure that you don't forget, and that those things don't go away, and that they have an impact of some kind. A really old video where I was talking about TJ Kirk versus Karlin Borisenko. Someone just left the word paedophile. They didn't even spell it correctly or put a full stop after it, but so, just the word paedophile is now an online argument, apparently. Back to Kalergi. Jamie Golding 5375 says, I've just clocked this video was done 4 years ago. In 2023, tell me it's a conspiracy now. Okay, Jamie, it's a conspiracy theory. There's no secret plan involving immigration. I don't know why you would think that there was. Aaron M. Stevenson, also on that video, says, I got as far as the word bubba at the 2 minutes 50 mark. Okay. Why you would brag that? I don't know. Let's see. Okay, more Kalergi. It's been busy. It seems as news events occur, so that video gets more and more hits. Buff Batman 2 says, forced diversity leads to the destruction of the parent culture. One needs to look no further than Paris to see this in action, or any major American city for that matter. There is no biological imperative that should drive the West to give away its demographic future. Well, Buff Batman, culture and society, these are memes, not genes. It doesn't matter what colour you are. It doesn't matter what race you or ethnicity you are. Culture is transmitted in memes. It's not handed down to you on a genetic level. Your genetics, on the kind of level that we're talking about, are pretty much irrelevant. And by pretty much, I mean 99.9 recurring % irrelevant. As to Paris, which seems to be the latest go-to, there's been a long history of racist policing in France. The French police have avoided proper scrutiny for some time, And just like anywhere else, there's racist policing. Eventually, the community around it gets sick of it, and then it's time for the shit is on fire show. Da-da-da-da-da. So I don't see the point you're making other than racist policing leads to shitty outcomes. Quite a few people congratulated Mr. Ryan David on coining the term Sparkle Troll. So, that was a good story. JP Garrison said, Marty, get in the DeLorean. We have to travel back to 1974 and warn TSR about Skittles there, which I thought was quite funny. Still getting harassment over my review of Burning Wheel because I didn't like it as much as people thought I should like it, and a character who was a knight almost got killed by a starving wolf in like one turn. So, you can't say we didn't give it a fair shake. But BrainTick123 says, I would say that the strength of Burning Wheel is that it forces you, perhaps kicking and screaming, to create a detailed, fleshed out and deeply flawed character. You'll always play to your strengths, which are often limited. This creates a believable sense of consequence. It felt more like it fetishized incompetence, and that it was virtually impossible to create a truly competent character. It felt like you were constantly pixel bitching for every single bonus that you could wring out of the system. It was not an enjoyable experience. Character creation was, however, quite fun, so I think you're okay on that score. I think with a bit of tweaking, it's a playable game in a good way. I like dice pool systems, but the way it's currently set up, no, that's not accurate. The way it is currently being played by people based on a couple of weird interpretations of a couple of obscure rules or suggestions that aren't even in the main books, that's very strange as a way to interpret and play a game. And the hostility and cultishness of the fans of the game is also incredibly off-putting, which is a shame, because I think I might be able to do something with it if I can fix it. Smaugfrost says, you're everything the left should be. Well, thank you, but I'm not quite that egotistical. I'm not particularly active, at least not anymore. I don't really do much in the way of activism anymore, outside of my sort of pet single issue things. So I think the left should be more engaged and less bitter and cynical than I am. So, and I think that's basically caught up to where I was. I may have even repeated a couple of comments from last time because it was all out of whack, but there you go. That's that. Next week, maybe I'll be able to squeeze in a couple more reviews again. Here's hoping. So I will see you all for the Weekend Geek tomorrow, and on Sunday we're playing Barbarians of the Aftermath. I haven't done any publicity for it because I was sick this week, so yeah, I better get on that. Zang.
Ars Goetia presents classical demonology for OSR games. If you like your magic to have a little authenticity, if not reality, then Ars Goetia will give you all the tools necessary to bring classical ritual magicians and demonologists into your OSR games.
This is the lie, don't comply. This is the end of nations' borders. These are the fears